I want to share with you. I started the newsletter that you received a few months ago, and my intention in starting it was to bring together like-minded people who have a passion and a concern and an interest in addressing ageism. And over the past few months, we've garnered about 500 plus people from 22 different countries, as well as across the U.S. and Canada. Um, it's very exciting to know that there are a number of people who share concerns and passions, and also it's a universal concern. I mean, we are all aging. And the question is, what are we doing to address it? I just posted another article that you guys should have received on ageism in the healthcare profession, and it's shocking to see what's taking place or not taking place. But if we don't speak up, if we don't do something about it individually and collectively, nothing's going to change. And the people I know in this call are doing some extraordinary things. But what could we do if there is more opportunity for collaboration? And so I thought about this and said, you know what? It's nice to know I have a newsletter and we have 500 plus people on there, but they don't know one another as well. If they do, they don't know them as well as I do on some of them. And I said, there are a lot of possibilities here. And so I wanted to put together a forum, a monthly forum that we're calling Wisdom of Age Presents, that will give people an opportunity to share their wisdom, their concerns, their ideas about whatever topic might be in play that month. And so, and realizing that any of these topics, such as today, we're only going to scratch the surface. But if we can generate an awareness among our peers who are part of this you're now part of this 500 plus people group. If we can multiply what we're doing among those 500 people and advance awareness of and the potential for building collaborations and collaborative models, then I think we have done more than just got together to talk. And there's too many times you can just get together and talk, or too many opportunities for that. So I also said that anyone who is a subscriber can bring to the meetings or these talks anyone they want. Okay, so if you want to invite somebody, but this is a closed shop where this is a private conversation. It's not open to the public. However, we are recording this because I want people to hear what we have to say. And if the video turns out and we can edit it accordingly, we'll send it to the other subscribers in the network. So you have an opportunity to get your thoughts, your messages, and your ideas out to other people who couldn't be on the call today or will want to be on the call the next time. So you guys responded to a survey I did. I asked what motivates you for connecting. The top 3 reasons: learning and sharing, professional connections, and brainstorming with peers. Well, here you go. We have a rather eclectic group of participants. You'll find that out as we go along. Okay, so I want to start by just say your name and either your occupation or interests so that the rest of us will know who you are and where you're coming from on this. Christine, want to start with you?
I think the best way for me to start is that after 16 years of school teaching and then years of being an at-home mom, a neighbor said, "You're perfect. I'll hire you. Come in Monday." I said, "Perfect for what?" And that started my opportunity to be in individual homes where one person there needed any kind of assistance as time went on, I learned, to fill med minder. I've got my own, and to make sure about safety and to accompany to um, uh, physical therapy appointments, and then learn from the physical therapist what I could do that would improve the life of the person that I assisted. So I did that in over 90 different homes.
Where are you located? You
Oh,
are in.
I'm in Oregon. And
Thank you. Jackie, where are you?
Well, I normally am in Calgary, Alberta, but right now I am in the absolutely stunningly beautiful Slocan Valley in British Columbia. Um, and I am come to, as an older adult, went back to school and became a social worker gerontologist. I'm retired now after a few years of teaching and stuff at a university level, but now my passion in terms of ageism and anti-ageism is being on the board of a very dynamic and actually really broad serving in many ways organization that supports and assists older adults in Calgary.
Thank you. Frank.
The reason I'm joining Jeff on this today is because I was quite moved by what I read in the Surgeon General's loneliness report, which I'll give to all of you at the end of this session. It just shocks me that we're not prepared for the baby boomer curve that's moving through society and changing everything with its numbers, that we didn't have the foresight that was given to us by Alvin Toffler in Future Shock back in 1972. And here we are with half of our American population 73 years old and slowing down on the highways, and et cetera, et cetera. So anyway, the last thing I want to say is I really feel honored to be with all of you. It's great to see being a group of leaders. So thank you.
Thank you. Jeffrey.
Yes, I will repeat Frank's comment that I feel honored to be with you guys. I've known some of you for some time. I've worked with people who have hearing loss, so I help fit hearing aids. I've done that for 12 years. I've been retired and I'm going back to work. I love it. I love helping people. And when people can't hear, they can't dialogue, they can't engage, they isolate. And I have invented a device that helps people with hearing loss and physical limitations insert their hearing aid into their ear. And so it's ergonomically designed, it's universally designed. Everybody naturally, instinctively uses their finger to insert the hearing aid in their ear. This helps them do it because it's interfaced with the fingertip. So it's ergonomically designed for the end of the fingertip and lets them control it and manage it and maneuver it. And so we're just about to announce a second invention that will make this very easy for everybody. And we're going to put pressure on the hearing aid manufacturers to make this available because it should be. And ageism is very important to me. I remember my mother saying that because she was older, people just dismissed her. They just dismissed her like she wasn't there, like she was invisible. And so I'm glad to be here. I'm from the greater Milwaukee, Wisconsin area. And it's good to see you too, Christine. And we'll be in touch. Again, we've been busy here. So thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Moira, you're muted.
Right. So I'm Moira Allen, and I co-founded with Jan Hively the Pass It On Network in 2013. And we tried to do exactly what the name says, pass it on, pass on our experience, pass on our what we've learned, and especially pass on the right attitude about aging, which is not always there. And we've spread and done, I think, pretty well. We've got representatives in 65 countries around the world. We're accredited to the United Nations Open-Ended Working Group on Aging to help work on and eventually get a convention for the rights of older people. And here I must just say that I was delighted this week to see that the African Union has now succeeded in getting 15 countries to ratify their protocol for older people, and that will go into effect now. So the Africans are beating the rest of us on that score, which is very good.
And it's still is it still an uphill battle for us in the U.S. to get
Is it still?
get on board? Is it still an uphill battle for us in the U.S. to get on board?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
And then specifically on the ageism thing, we've been very much involved with an organization which has the unlikely name of FUFA, F-U-F-A, which is a French-speaking organization, and it means French-speaking United Against Ageism. And we're working there with Ashton Applewhite. And the whole point there is to get a French-speaking movement to get going, and she's already got a Spanish one, so we're trying to help with that one. And anti-ageism is in everything that we do as well, just to, and there's so much more one can say, but I think for the moment that's absolutely fine.
Right. And in your spare time, yes, Carrie.
Hi, I'm Carrie. I'm the founder of a company called The Long Distance Grandparent. I also spent a couple of decades in the area of aging and caregiving research as an academic in applied healthcare settings. And so my interest in ageism has just kind of always been there. I've been in gerontology and studying various components of aging since I was 19. I am approaching 50 now. And so similarly, Frank, it's sometimes shocking to think, how are we not a little more ready for this? Because I was told when I was 19, go into gerontology, you'll always have a job where, the aging population is coming. And so I read the same things over and over again. Anyhow, I decided to take what I know about relationships, connecting generations, and put it into a product in the long distance grandparent. But really, when it comes to ageism, we know that one of the antidotes to ageism is intergenerational relationships. And one of those really important relationships is between grandparents and grandchildren. And the World Health Organization in their report, if you kind of look at the small print, it's actually a strong and high quality relationship with a grandparent that can result in less ageist perspectives in kids as young as 4 and 5. And so I have this kind of underlying mission in my business to help long distance grandparents connect with their grandchildren, because they are, and we know this from the research, at the highest risk of not having a strong relationship. And I am about to celebrate the 5th year of my company in August. I love the work that I'm doing. And, I presented at the Pass It On Network, I think, with Jeff at some stages. I mean, I know several people on the call, so I'm just delighted to be back in the fold here today. So thanks for the invite, Jeff.
Oh, very nice. Okay. Is there anyone that we have in? Oh, Barbara.
I'm delighted to follow all of you. Carrie, you touched my heart deeply. I shared a room with my grandmother till I was 19, and then got married and moved out of that room to be with my husband. And I think everything I learned from a woman who had survived the Holocaust, who said to me, women can do everything and anything. And in the 1950s, nobody was telling us that. So I'm in Philadelphia. I'm an educator and a social and entrepreneur. I started an organization called Champions of Caring, which has worked with over 10,000 youth in Philadelphia and South Africa to promote social activism. We recently started at Temple University intergenerational classes and cafes, which involve people from the ages of 18 to 95. And that is the way to go, my friends. The magic that happens, we know that the most isolated group right now are these college kids, which shocked me. I thought it was older generations. Bringing us together to talk about social issues, social justice, how we can live a life of meaning and purpose is so vital. I'm currently working with an Emmy Award-winning documentarian to create a movie about social activism and about bringing all generations together to do this. So I would love to speak to any of you who might have an interest in the work that I'm doing, but collaboration between generations to me is the key to creating a kinder, more just world.
Barbara, would you put your website into the chat box?
Yes, I'd be delighted.
Okay, and did we get everybody? Susan, we didn't get you. Olmsted. Oh, you're muted.
I'm a former RPN, and I changed careers a long time ago into doing what I'm doing right now, and I'm following more into justice, equality, and unity. And I believe that there's too much discrimination and elder abuse and abuse in and domestic violence and parental alienation and abuse in ageism. I have worked in many facilities here in Ottawa. I shouldn't say many. I've worked in enough facilities in Ottawa to as well as I've done a lot of private duty and palliative care, which I used to just love. Gerontology has always been something that I've been good at and in my heart, because my grandmother, my mom's mother, always lived with us, and she was really my rock. She was a real sweetheart and a very loving, kind, caring woman. And I believe, this also has created a great impact, definitely on my life. That when someone is being abused, you need to speak up, and no matter what age you're at, as long as you're able to speak up and do it.
Let me give you guys a chance to talk about this isolation and loneliness. And let me just start by saying, according to the Surgeon General, says our epidemic of loneliness and isolation has been an underappreciated public health crisis that has harmed individual and societal health. Our relationships, exactly what Susan is talking about, are a source of healing and well-being hiding in plain sight. One that can help us live healthier, more fulfilled, and more productive lives. When it comes to isolation and loneliness, there's so many facets of how people wind up in that situation. And what got me in terms of some of the facts, the number of single-person households accounts for just under 30% of all U.S. households. So a third of our population is living alone. Approximately half of the U.S. adults report experiencing loneliness, with some of the highest rates among young adults. So it's not just an issue that is affecting older adults. Only 16% of Americans report that they felt very attached to their local community. If you feel you have no connection to that community, then why should you participate? The rate of loneliness among young adults has increased every year between 1976 and 2019. Chronic loneliness and social isolation increases the risk of developing dementia by approximately 50% in older adults, while increasing the risk of depression and anxiety in children and adolescents. And the last thing that got my attention was lacking social connection can increase the risk of premature death as much as smoking up to 15 cigarettes a day. So not only social, emotional, but in terms of one's own health. It is a major issue. So I'm going to start by asking by show of hands, is there anyone here who has not experienced isolation or loneliness at some point in their lives? So we all have. You have. Christina has. You've
I
never
have
been
to.
isolated. You never felt isolated or alone. Okay. Well, and why is that?
To be with people. So I've made myself always be with groups of people, even when I was teaching. When they said, your classroom really can't handle any more students, I'm like, no, it's more is more fun. So I think that I pushed for that. Had I become widowed, like our friend in her early 50s, she still had people around her, but felt very alone because there's not that many widows at her age, divorced people, single people, people who are live on their own as a choice.
So,
And
let me ask you. So,
yeah.
what you're saying, Christine, is that having access to friends, having access to a social network, is been very important for you and has allowed you to say with a fair degree of certainty that isolation or loneliness has not been an issue for you. But for most other people on the call, it has. And I'm curious to know, just in terms of one particular instance, how that has affected you or why you felt that way. Does anyone want to take up that question, Susan?
Well, I know that when I was in public school, I didn't have friends, and I had a very difficult time knowing how to have friends outside of school. I think parents need to, many parents, especially if they're working, have a difficult time trying to encourage their kids and to be involved with other parents to encourage them to make friends. So that's one aspect of it. Another aspect of it is not everybody wants to be involved in sports and certain activities, and I think you have to find something that is going to make you feel not as isolated. However, even though you go to whatever you're belonging to or whatever event you're going to that is in even a group meeting, you still can come away from being isolated and not having friends around you. And I have felt very isolated living in Ottawa. Ottawa is not the easiest city to make friends in. I'm from Kitchener. I went to Toronto to nurse, and then I came up to Ottawa, and Toronto, I had friends. When I came to Ottawa, I've had a very difficult time making friends. However, I've been fortunate enough, at least by keeping busy, within myself and learning how to be happy within myself. Even though I'm isolated from other people, I'm still happy within myself. So I think isolation is also learning how to become happy within yourself.
I'd be curious to know, do you think it's more difficult to meet new people as we age? Anybody?
Sometimes it is, depending on what you're involved in, and is what I think.
The reason I ask that is there's a number of things that you raise here. One being, to me, are you an extrovert or an introvert? If you're an introvert,
I have been both.
okay. And the other thing is, as we get older, my own experience has been that you have to force yourself outside of your comfort zone, if you will, to try and make new friends. And particularly if you are an introvert per se. I don't have that particular dilemma
I'm not
myself.
I think I learned how to become a real extrovert over the years, but when I need some time to myself, that's how I think and feel I am introverted. Okay.
Yeah.
But otherwise, I feel I'm a true extrovert.
Okay, Barbara and Carrie, I'm curious to know. Oh, and Jackie, I'll get to you in a minute. But Barbara, I'm curious to know from the standpoint of your intergenerational
So yeah, I
efforts.
want to share that during COVID, the thing that saved about 50 people for many semesters was this intergenerational course we created at Temple University, where we had people that ranged from 18 to 95 at one point in a class. And the joy that people were feeling in a time where they're the most isolated, they were getting COVID, they were losing loved ones, they were afraid to go anywhere. Everyone said that Tuesday and Thursdays between 11 and 1 was the best time of their day. And what shocked me was how isolated the college kids felt. Our generation and older people in the group were complaining, and then we would talk amongst each other after these sessions. Oh my God, these kids are craving connection. And we were not their grandparents. This is a very different relationship than we have with our grandchildren. I mean, I'll just make you smile for a moment. The students taught, and they taught a class on sex and dating. And one of the students shared about polyamory. And a lot of the people in the group did not know about polyamorous sex and having these different lovers. And a 94-year-old says to her, oh my God, I wish I'd known this sooner. I would have had so much better a life. And we just bonded over that. And I made the observation to the group that, isn't it incredible that this college student would feel free enough to share this with us, and that someone in her 90s could, open up like that and be, so accepting of this at her stage in life. But, I think we need to realize that we're not the only people feeling the pains of life as we age, but young people are starving for connection. And that's why I'm such a huge advocate. And if any of you want to talk with me further about intergenerational cafes, about getting younger and older together to share their ideas. And I'm a social activist creating a documentary now to promote social activism. And I'm moving in the direction of intergenerational social activism because I learned so much from young people. And I have a 60-year career at this point where I've run companies. They can learn from me as well. So it's a beautiful marriage when you bring older and younger together. You learn to respect each other. You get new creative ideas. You can be supportive of each other. So if you're feeling isolated, find a younger person. They'll pick you up. And I'll just end with, I lost 5 of my best friends in the last 5 years. And you cannot replace 50-year friendships. So I'm now an advocate of find young people as friends. It really can be very helpful. And I mean, I'm saying that with a bit of humor, but let's mix it up. I don't feel I have to go to people my age to have socialization. I can go to people of all ages and stay very open-minded.
I would ask you, Barbara, is it more likely that the desire to communicate or the ease of communication is greater when you skip a generation, when you're talking about young people with, say, someone of a grandparent's age?
Well, it's not like talking to your child or your grandchild. It's more of an equal relationship. When I tell my grandchildren about these relationships, they go, oh my God, you heard polyamory? And they freak out on me. I go, yeah, and I was fine with it. How do you like that? It's a different kind of connection. And we learn from each other. That's the key. We don't walk in as the experts because we have a 5, a 6, a 7, or an 8 after our age. We walk in as equals. We want to learn. We have stuff to share. I suck at technology. They all know that. It's like, oh, Barb's not going to know how to do that. Let's help her. But I'm pretty good on life and, and dealing with crises and creating companies. So, and I don't walk in with a chip. It's like, this is what I know. This is what I don't know. Can we collaborate?
Yeah.
So everything I do now is intergenerational. Every committee I'm on that around the foundation, the documentary has young people, and they're funny and they're fun and they have a great spirit about life, but they're also hurting and lonely and could use our insights about life in a supportive way, not lecturing, but sharing from the heart.
Okay. Barbara, I think I have 2 connections for you that would you might be interested in speaking with, and I'll talk to you about it afterwards.
Thank you.
Kerry, talk about this. You're dealing with long distance grandparents and long distance relationships. How does this particular issue tie into that?
Well, a couple of ways. I think that, certainly for the grandparents that I work with, there is a longing specifically for family, and, a sense of feeling irrelevant within their families. And definitely because of distance, if you're not there day to day, or you don't know what the interests of your grandchildren are, you feel forgotten. And so ultimately that is what is, I think, the drag, emotionally for them. So of course, I actually face and work with a lot of grandparents who are experiencing a deep grief. And, I've called it kind of like grand grief just to be catchy in social media land. But it really is this like deep sense of longing, sadness, disappointment that they can't have the relationship, or feel that they can't have the relationship that they want to have, a disappointment in their own adult children, because they feel like they're not, helping them to engage in the relationship. And when I work with grandparents, it's often the first kind of phase is getting them unstuck from this grief and this feeling of not being relevant and not thinking they can have a relationship. Because of course there are hundreds of ways to connect from a distance, but parents are, like millennial parents or even Gen X parents are quite new to this idea of playing together online or connecting online. So, I see it there, and I've had my own experience because I'm an older mother who lived as an expat, and so when I say that I'm quite extroverted, I do have quite a lot of friends and like deep, beautiful friendships that I'm lucky to have. But drop yourself into Dubai with a 2-year-old and see what happens. And so I learned the value of community there and the value of online community because other mothers really came to my rescue. Like, what do I do with a 2-year-old when it's 40 degrees outside? I had no idea. My husband traveled for work. But because I had this kind of identity as a mom, an expat mom, I was able to link into community there. And we've just moved back to Toronto after, I say just, it's going to be 3 years, but it feels like we just got back. And I don't know, I'm still working on, building community here, but I have some very like wonderful intergenerational friendships with the neighbors here. And it's something that I'm open to. And that, we have, when I have my children's birthday parties, for example, we invite our neighbor, like actually 2 neighbors who are both over 70. And I don't know, they come to soccer practices. And so I'm in it. I see the value of the friendships that they have with me. I just helped a neighbor down the street who ended up in hospital, just kind of, randomly bringing her gravel. And then she called me from the hospital. She needed earplugs. Like there's, I think, a lot of potential capital in our communities, for helping one another. And there's relationship capital. I don't know, she swears I brought her blood pressure down and saved her life because I sent my husband, with my 5-year-old son to drop off headphones or like earphones so she could sleep. But that's just an example of, I think, what's possible when we start within our families in these relationships and it goes out to community. It's just a mentality that we need to have.
Very good. Jackie, you wanted to say something earlier?
I don't need to add anything anymore. Barbara was actually reiterating a lot of what I was certainly when I was studying, as well as my experiences in terms of when you're an older adult, finding friendships is difficult because you know you're losing friends, but you also don't look around and see that perhaps maybe establishing friends with younger people is a possibility. I would describe myself as a outgoing, outgoing. What's the other word? You said that we were either what or what, Jeff?
Oh, extrovert or introvert?
Yeah, I'm an outgoing introvert. I've discovered that, and it's really an interesting thing. But really, all I wanted to reiterate was this importance of establishing relationships with younger people as well. Uh, this whole thing, I think, one of the keys when we are encouraging people to reach out is the confidence in yourself and the understanding of all the experiences that you have had that are of value to others. And if you have that sense of confidence, you can approach a lot of these relationships with younger people who really are interested in that history. Sometimes it just needs to be awakened.
Absolutely. I would, as we're talking, I would like you guys to think about after the call's over, other areas how isolation and loneliness impacts people based upon the situation they find themselves in. For example, if I've lost my job, I'm going to go into a funk. I might not want to be around my friends, and therefore I self-isolate. If I retire, didn't you used to be so and so? Used to be, and people will tell me that the day after they retired, whatever profession it is, they felt useless. They weren't needed anymore. And so we talk about need, desire to be needed. I also will take the other side of this in terms of a friend of ours, I would say Jackie knows, and Carrie, um, Patricia Morgan, who talks a lot about isolation and loneliness. And she said, don't forget the fact that there are people who enjoy being alone. And so it's not like everybody, if I'm not around people, then there's something wrong with me. The importance of solitude and the significance of it is important. But going back to, again, what Carrie was saying in terms of community, I go back to what struck me about how only 16% of Americans report they felt attached to their local community. Well, does our community have an obligation to address this issue? And if so, how?
You know, I think there should be more intergenerational housing. I live in an apartment building in Philadelphia. The average age is 70, 75. Two younger people moved in the building. I was the first to greet them. I was so thrilled to see that. But we don't encourage that.
Mm-hmm.
Need to be more opportunities for us to come together. And Zoom has been a lifesaver during COVID and now, where you can in fact meet with anyone at any time. And you don't even have to get dressed beyond a certain point of your body. I mean, life has become easier than ever, ladies. We put on earrings and lipstick and we're ready to roll. But I think we should be looking at encouraging situations around voting. I mean, let's talk about voting right now. Let's get older and younger out there. I don't like when we see ourselves in silos. And I think having a dialogue, I talk to a lot of young people, if they're my waiter, wherever I see them, because I want people to see I might be old enough to be your grandmother, but I'm cool and hip and I like you and I care about you.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm willing to engage with you. And I think that sets a tone. It's the way we present in the world every single day. I am not a know-it-all. You know, and I'm willing to learn, and I put that out there, you know, with humor and embracing people. So as long as we have this message, I know everything, I'm older, I've lived through all that, that is a deterrent to creating new relationships.
Could I also say that one of the things I think that created a lot of this issue was a phase that our society, at least the one that I'm familiar with, went through in various ways. And it was recreational programs, it was church situations, it was the educational systems. We're creating probably 20, 30 years ago, sectionalizing people so that you would have so many activities, so many events that would be just for these people and then just for those people. And I think this really did create a lot of this issue around this lack of connectivity. Because when even my parents grew up, it was very much more of a community growth, and it was community together. For some reason we went through that. And I think that now we're paying a bit of a price for that.
But we can reverse it.
Absolutely.
We have to.
Yes.
You know,
Yep.
I think also about spaces, right? And how so for example, in cities, and I live in Toronto, it's really like people congregate in parks, not in the winter so much, and I've often, and if I have some spare time coming up, thought about like what would that look like to gather people for an intergenerational park date, like a big play date because we used to gather as a community when I was, when my first son was just young, and it was called Pizza in the Park. And it would be all families. And I remember my neighbors who were a bit older kind of like hovering because a playground doesn't look like a place where if you're a couple who are 75, that you should just come in and have some pizza because it's kind of being pitched in a different way. And so I think that, we see in some of the more rural settings in Canada, they have these centers for rural aging. And I know that they're doing some great work, and oftentimes really surprised by the number of people who are coming to the table for these different events, whether they're online or in person. But I think if we start to, open up, for example, playgrounds that have places where anybody can come to, but, events that are funded, because, if you just bring food into a park, people will come of all ages. And yeah, that is like in some life, I hope to achieve that.
There is a company, I think it's out of Oregon, but don't hold me to it, that is focused on building intergenerational playgrounds.
Ooh.
And it is intended so that, for exactly that reason, if I'm a grandparent and I come and all I can do is sit on the bench and watch my child play, where's my interaction here? And so they're designing apparatus that is adaptable and available for older adults to also participate. And that is something that I would love to see more of, and more communities, embracing that. So we have plenty of skate parks, but but if you're over a certain age, I don't know if you're going to use the park or not. But I wanted to know, what are some of the issues that impact social connection in your workplace, home life, or community? So think about it from the standpoint of that. I had a question about, does communication work better peer to peer? Although talking about this in terms of intergenerational, that's not the case. And I wanted to know if you know of or are involved in, aside from the intergenerational programs that were mentioned here, are there others? I'd love to hear what other programs might be out there. And lastly, I would say to you, what's one thing you could do to improve communication from your perspective? And when you leave here, what could you do? What's one thing you could do? So, I want to ask, just as if we can go around, if there's any things we didn't touch on that you'd like to see us talk about further. Is there an avenue we haven't even considered as we
No, I just want to say that it's a joy to be with this group, and I would love to look for synergies, how we can support each other's work, because we all have similar agendas. The world is on fire, and I mean that literally. And I think if we can help each other, like I'm looking to set up intergenerational cafes between seniors and college and high school age kids. If any of you who are living in different communities are interested in collaborating with me, I have the model. We can share it with you. We have a professor at Temple University who does a study after each session to see how it impacted. So we have data. So I would love to speak with any of you who are interested in bringing intergenerational collaboration together, particularly for social justice, to have all of us talk about the world we're living in and how we can make it a better place. And on my website, championsofcaring.org, we have an empowerment guide to show people how to take their passions, interests, and causes and create programs for social change.
All right. Anyone else?
The word that comes to mind listening this morning is intentional, or what do you intend? What are you intentionally doing? And these conversations help people to go, what can I do? I showed up for a forum. It was a very rainy day. It was at the senior center. There were 7, 8, 9 college students, all in gerontology or different types of behavioral science. I was the only old person that showed up that day. Even the director had to go and rescue a husband with a broken down car. And for 90 minutes, I got to interact as peers with people that are 1/3 of my age. It was dynamic. We solved a problem for our community as far as equity of transportation for aging people who need to get to appointments. It was wonderful. Volunteer for a forum or show up at a forum and be a friend to college people who want someone to hear why they're in gerontology, because a lot of their peers do not understand why they're so excited about that.
Very nice. Very nice.
Yeah, I think if I would just add to that, are there kind of more micro actions that we can take? And so I think, yes, like collectively, kind of bigger organizations, but I'm constantly lately, because I'm in the throes of a certain time of life and my business, trying to just consider like what is my, people have like a meditation practice, like what is my connection practice? And so to extend that, what is my like intergenerational practice? That's just struck me today, like that's something that is really manageable that I can do in my family and also within my community, is just being intentional about a certain practice of connection with someone from a different generation.
Part of the rationale for these meetings is to connect with others in terms of similar thoughts and ideas. So going back to Barbara, in terms of having a intergenerational program already in place, it might be an opportunity for you to test, or for both of you guys to test it out among the grandparents you're working with. And if that is something of value and you guys are open to it, then you've accomplished something special here. You've increased awareness and you've engaged people in conversation. I have to tell you, after so many years of working in this field, I don't know who said earlier about I think it might have been Kerry saying earlier about, they were telling you years ago that this is the field to be in, and people kept saying, well, we haven't reached the cusp yet. We haven't gotten there yet, but sooner or later, you wait, we're going to be there. I really think it's still, after all these years, it's still a question of raising awareness. we are so much in denial. It's like we're not aging, it's the other person. And if we see an old person, wait a minute, geez. That old cartoon that had people, two guys sitting at a diner and look at those old people over there. Well, they looked at, it was happened to be a mirror at the, we don't think in those terms. But, we're all in the same boat. We're all aging. And how do we change the dynamics of how we look at ourselves and how others look at us? And I think that's the crux of it. So with that said, thank you guys for a very stimulating conversation